a man, who they say he murdered 3. Strange things have happened there. No stranger would it be if we met at midnight in the hanging tree.
Welcome to the show. I'm your host, Chris James. Yes, if you can't tell by the sound of my voice, I do have a bit of a cold. It's the great thing about being married to a school teacher. They bring all kinds of things home besides homework. I have not changed my policy of editing the show. So if there's a break in the audio, or if you see a jump in the video, it's because I started coughing my head off and I decided to not entertain y'all with that nonsense. An occasional cough now and then, that's not a big thing, but if it turns into a work of art, I'll simply chop it out. A chimera is a creature created by mixing parts from different beings. Coffee is a substance created from the fruit tree. It's fruit juice, hot fruit juice. Unless you drink it cold, then it's cold fruit juice. Some coffee companies mix in all kinds of chemicals for their own stupid reasons. Better living through chemical dependency, I guess. Organic Man Coffee Trike uses only organic coffee beans, which you already know that. Better living through nature. 4501 McPherson is home of the best coffee in the universe. Stop by if you can, or go to organicmancoffeetrike.shop. Coffee is good, and good coffee is gooder. TTT with Vicar Manson is back. I hope he keeps putting out shows. His voices gave him a lot of verbal abuse the other day. They do not appreciate being shelved for so long. I have seen Annabelle Lee looking in the window of my studio a few times. Apparently, she was out touring. I started out looking into the snallygaster, a bird reptile chimera originating in the the superstitions of early German immigrants. Weren't I forget how Bugs Bunny said it, the superstitious mountains. Anyway, as more sightings were reported, the press got involved. This always has a bad outcome. People read the news and see something that to them is or looks like the creature being written up in the papers. If you want to find the real story, sometimes you can only consider the first few reports before things get messed up. According to Greek mythology, the Chimera was a monstrous, fire breathing hybrid creature from Lycia, Asia Minor, composed of different animal parts. But typically, it is depicted as having a lion's body with a goat head, and sometimes protruding from the middle of its back, and the tail that ended in a snake's head. Some representations also included dragon wings. It was said to be the offspring of Typhon and Echidna, and a sibling of monsters like Cerberus and the Hydra. The name chimera has come to describe any creature of fiction or nonfiction that has various parts of different animals all stuck together. According to Hesiod, the Chimera's mother was a certain ambiguous she, which may have been Echidna, in which case the father is presumed to be Typhon. The mythographers, Apollodorus and Hyginus, both make the Chimera the offspring of Echidna and Typhon. Hesiod also said the Sphinx and the Nemean lion were also offsprings of these two. And another ambiguous she, some woman of negotiable affections, or maybe a royal with loose standards, which kind of describes most of them. Let's face it, some of those old stories had some questionable romantic encounters. Myth is not a made up story, but an account of past deeds that are handed down from generation to generation until written language arrives on the scene. That was a cough, not a sneeze, honest. There's going to be somebody out there who's going to say, oh my God, I'm going to catch what he has over the airwaves. I know this because I saw a guy at a Zoom meeting wearing a face mask. Talk about overly cautious. Homer described the Chimera in the Iliad, saying that she was of divine stock and not of men. In the forepart, a lion. In the hinder, well, no, that was the hinder, a serpent. And in the midst, or middle, a goat, breathing forth in terrible wise the might of blazing fire. Aren't you glad they don't write like that anymore? Hesiod and Apollodorus gave similar descriptions: a three-headed creature with a lion in front, a fire-breathing goat in the middle, and a serpent in the rear. In a lesser-known tale, the Cumean Sibyl encounters this Cumean Sibyl encounters a chimera in a vision, interpreting it as an omen of bad things to come. She advised her followers to establish harmony in their community to prevent chaos and destruction that might have been brought about by this chimera. I hope my voice doesn't sound as bad to y'all as it does to me. I hear my voice inside my head, which right now is packed full of cotton, or at least it feels that way. Sometimes I hear voices inside my head that aren't my own. There's someone in my head, but it's not me. Some of y'all will get that one. According to Homer, the Chimera who was reared by Aristodoros, the father of Adaminus and Maris, the Trojan warriors, who had been killed by Nestor's son, Antilochus, and Thisiodemus, was a bane to many men. As told in the Iliad, the hero Bellerophon was ordered by King Lycia to slay the Chimera. This was not to rid the world of the beast, but in hopes that the monster would kill Bellerophon. The hero, trusting in the signs he received from the gods, succeeds in killing the Chimera. Hesiod adds that Bellerophon was helped in killing the Chimera by Pegasus, which, if you consider a winged horse, would also be a chimera. Apollodorus gave a more complete account of the story. Lobatus, the king of Lycia, had ordered Bellerophon, why can't these people say this in English, dang it? Bellerophon, to kill the Chimera that had been killing cattle and devastating the country. The hero mounted his winged horse, Pegasus, who had sprung from the blood of Medusa, and soared on high, shot down the Chimera. If you read some of the old stories, you'll find some wild tales that may be true. They definitely have been enhanced over the years to make them a little more entertaining. Nobody wants to sit around a campfire listening to some guy telling about a very boring adventure. They want to hear blood, guts, gore. They want to hear heroic deeds and terrible monsters. And so I'm sure a lot of the myths were enhanced a bit, quite a bit, a whole lot, really. The name Chimera derives from the ancient Greek chimera, which means she goat. The term appears in Homer's Iliad, where the creature is described as a monstrous entity with goat like features integrated into its horrid body. Who do you think of when I say a she goat? I'm not going to say it, but the name does make me think of a couple of people. Scholars connect chimera to chima, meaning a winter storm, implying that the chimera evokes harsh, unpredictable weather. A fitting name for a fire breathing beast that goes around scorching the earth and killing people. The seasonal connotation may explain its localization in Lycia, where natural gas vents producing eternal flames, possibly inspiring the fire breathing part of the story. By the Roman period, Pliny the Elder, in Natural History, rationalized the chimera as a misidentified lion species, or perhaps something coming from a volcano, moving the term away from mythology and more towards natural history. Hygiene, I, I really like this next name, Hyginus fabulae. It sounds like fabulous hygiene to me. Lists it alongside Simlings, using chimera to denote a hybrid monstrosity. These changes show how the name transitioned from a specific mythological reference to a general description of impossible compositions that have been stuck together to create monsters. It even influenced modern English, where chimera means an illusion or a genetic hybrid. In medieval Latin, chimera appears in the bestiaries as a deceptive beast, blending with Christian allegory. Renaissance scholars like Cesare Ripa, in some Latin sounding named book, revived it as a symbol of fraud, depicting it with a human face and a scaly tail. Iconologia, that's the word. That sounds really bad inside my head. The chimera was seen as a sign of disaster. According to ancient historian Strabo, people claimed to have spotted it near Mount Cragus, where the flames it brought were thought to foreshadow earthquakes or volcanic eruptions. Pliny the Elder suggested that these fears were linked to actual fire events at the place called the Chimera Promontory, which both guarded, guided sailors and scared some of the locals. You could see these things at night, like giant lighthouses. In other stories, such as those of Hyginus, the chimera roar were said to bring on storms, linking it to a powerful giant typhoon. The poet Ovid mentioned that defeating the Chimera calmed the chaos. At the same time, Virgil described it as haunting the underworld, kind of like Cerberus, where it burned the souls of those who tried to escape. One ancient poem hints that the Chimera may have also appeared during the Trojan Wars, flying over the battlefield and freaking out the troops. Local custom suggests that the Chimera may be appeased by feeding it a bunch of goats. If you ignore it, though, you're looking to have a really bad time. The lion part of the Chimera gives it incredible strength, allowing it to charge into battle, attacking its prey. The goat head adds extra strength and it can bite, while the snake tail is loaded with venom. One of the most terrifying features of the Chimera is its ability to breathe fire. Whether from the lion's mouth or the goat's head, this fire was a force to be reckoned with, right up there with Greek fire. And now I finally have gotten back to the snallygaster. Early sightings associate the snallygaster with Frederick County, Maryland, especially the area of South Mountain, Braddock Heights, and the Middletown Valley. Later reports would expand on sightings encompassing an area that included central Maryland, Baker, Berkeley County, West Virginia, and Washington, D.C. Like I said, as the newspapers printed these stories, people began interpreting what they were seeing as what was being reported earlier. Was the snallygaster actually seen all over the place? Or was it something else and people just thought it was related? The area of Frederick County, Maryland was settled by German immigrants about 1730s. Early accounts describe the community being terrorized by a monster called the Schnellergeist, meaning quick ghost in German. If you ever watched old World War II movies, usually about prisoners of war, you'll see some German guard, Sergeant Schultz perhaps, saying schnell, schnell, which means move quickly. The earliest incarnation of the creature mixed the half-bird features of a siren with the nightmarish features of a demon or a ghoul. The Schneiligester, which became the Snallygaster, was described as half reptile, half bird, having a metallic beak which was lined with razor-sharp teeth. Occasionally, the creature was seen with octopus-like tentacles. The snallygaster was rumored to swoop silently down from the sky at night and pick up unwary travelers and haul them away. The earliest stories said that this monster sucked the blood from its victims. 7 pointed stars, which some people refer to as the devil's trap, reportedly kept the snallygaster at bay. You can still see these images painted on barns up in the northeastern part of the country. The superstition of hanging a horseshoe on a barn is similar to painting a big star on the barn. It was to ward off evil. German settlers sometimes painted elaborate star images on their barns that eventually came to be known as hex signs. The term was derived from the word hexai, which means witch in German. The original paintings resembled Amish quilt squares more so than what we classically think of as a star. Newspaper accounts throughout February and March of 1909 describe encounters between local residents and a beast with enormous wings, a long pointed bill, claws like steel hooks, and an eye in the center of its forehead. It was described as making a screeching sound, kind of like a locomotive's whistle. A great deal of publicity surrounding this string of appearances, with the Smithsonian Institution offering a reward to anyone that could bring in a body. President Theodore Roosevelt was said to consider postponing an African safari so that he could personally hunt for the snallygaster instead. June 22nd, 1953, Whittaker Chambers, whose hometown was in Maryland, used the snallygaster to describe U.S. Senator Joseph McCarthy in his essay, "Is Academic Freedom in Danger?" Looking around at the world today, I think McCarthy was right. McCarthy has been kind of demonized by a lot of people. Uh, Most people will focus on the McCarthy Red Scare. What a lot of people don't realize is when he was a young man and he inherited his family's factory, he went out of his way to see to it that black people could work there alongside the white ones. He was far more racially integrated than anybody else in the country. Yet all they'll focus on is the fact that he wanted to keep those commies out of our country. Though rare, chimerism, chimerism, chimerism is humans. It can happen as early as in conception. The first human chimera was reported in 1953. While pregnant, a mother and baby exchanged DNA, making them microchimeras. That CH kind of gets to me. Chimerism also occurs when two embryos fuse. This is called twin chimerism, or the vanishing twin phenomenon. The resulting individual takes on cells from both embryos, resulting in a mixed genetic makeup. The baby that's born usually displays one or more of the following: different colored eyes, mixed skin tones or birthmarks, patches of hair with different texture, or both male and female genitals, as they like to say on Expanded Perspectives. People listen to Expanded Perspectives and they hear them mispronouncing words and they get all up in arms about it, like a hyena. And they don't realize that Cam and Kyle are just having fun with you. They like to mispronounce words, and sometimes I mispronounce words just because I mispronounce words. Sometimes twin chimerism can make DNA testing difficult, particularly paternity and maternity tests. If a father or mother is a chimera, there is a chance that the DNA of his or her vanished twin could pass on to the child. Chimerism can also save a person's life. If someone has a blood transfusion or an organ transplant, they take on some of the DNA of the donor. The same goes for bone marrow transplants. If the transplant is successful, the donor's stem cells migrate to the recipient's bone marrow, where they produce red blood cells. As a result, their cells and blood type will change. Chimerism is not always obvious, and many people pass through life not knowing that they are a bit of an anomaly. The short story here is it is possible to mix DNA and come up with some interesting results. This is not new. Folks have been known about messing about with splicing way back. The gene splicing is just a very advanced form of the same thing. Have you ever looked at a rose bush and wondered why right down at the base of the bush it kind of shoots off at a weird angle? That's what happened. It was spliced when it was smaller. In the 1920s, a Soviet biologist, Ilya Ivanov, created the stronger and more resilient horse to use in farming. He aimed to increase agriculture production. He also created animal hybrids like the Z-donk, a cross between a zebra and a donkey, and a zebron, a bison cow mix. After these successes, Ivanov turned his attention to creating a race of human-ape hybrids. Ivanov appealed to the Soviet government and received a grant of $10,000. That's about $162,000 today. He was out to prove that Darwin's theory of evolution was true, as well as to create an army of ape men. Ivanov headed over to French Guiana, where he planned to grab some apes and pay local women, women of negotiable affections apparently, to diddle them. Ivanov hadn't considered there are some people that just won't do certain things for money. Now, there are people out there that will do anything for a buck. We call them politicians. Ivanov had simply picked the wrong test subjects. The local women said, nay, nay, not doing that. Ivanov was now in a bind. Stalin did not like failure. There were lots of missing and dead people who didn't fulfill Joe's wishes. Ivanov kind of liked being free, and he really liked being alive. Plan 2. Ivanov set up a clinic and told women he was just doing examinations. Make sure all the dainty bits were in good working order. He was actually artificially inseminating women with chimpanzee sperm without their knowledge. Can you imagine if he had been successful? The delivery room would have been hysterical. Try explaining that one to your husband. No, really, you're the only one. His experiments did not work, and he was disgraced. Eventually, the Soviets exiled him to Kazakhstan, where he died in the early 1930s. Well, that is the official story. This was the 1920s. Things have advanced a lot in the last 100 years. We don't know what all some flake might have been doing in some secret government lab somewhere. All, all in the name of security. The boys in the white lab coats gave LSD to an elephant just to see what might happen. What could possibly go wrong? I think it was named Trunco, and it immediately fell over dead. Another set of chimera experiments occurred in China in the 1960s. Reports from the Wenhu Bio newspaper stated Chinese scientists succeeded in impregnating a female chimp with human sperm. According to a scientist quoted in the paper, the authorities arrested the scientist during the Cultural Revolution, and the chimp died of natural causes. That's the official. Old Mao was a bit sketchy in the morals department. Some odd reason my computer just blinked on and off. Good thing nothing turned off, but that was weird. Things like that don't normally happen. Normally. Oh, I know. It was the NSA logging in. Or the FBI logging in. Maybe it was the Chinese or the Russians. Nah. Well, I actually do have listeners in China and in Russia. Oh, well. If they're listening, it gives me more people listening. Okay, back to China. Anyway, old Mao was a bit sketchy in the morals department as well. Was the experiment really destroyed? Or was it whisked away to some secret lab where more boys in white lab coats could get ideas? In the 1980s, Stanford University scientists injected mice with human stem cells to try to develop a human immune system. They say the experiment was not a success. And keep in mind, as long as people aren't using their own money, they will try any kind of foolishness. 2003, scientists in China created a hybrid embryo using human rabbit cells. Just try to picture that one if it grew up. The purpose of the experiment was for the rabbit to grow human organs or tissue to harvest for transplants. They also inserted human cells into pig embryos, hoping that the pig's kidneys would have human cells. 2020, scientists at the State University of New York at Buffalo and Roswell Park Comprehensive Cancer Center, why such a long name? Successfully implanted human stem cells in a mouse embryo. The mouse had 4% human cells, the highest percentage ever achieved, so they tell us. Over 2 weeks, the embryo developed human eye cells and red blood cells. Scientists hope to treat disease with these cells. Now, they're not trying to grow a human, they tell us. Most recently, experiments by Juan Carlos Espucia Belmonte and his team at the Salk Institute created a human monkey chimera embryo. It took 4 years and the embryo successfully grew for a few days before the team claimed they destroyed it. His team also produced a rat mouse hybrid by injecting stem cells from rats into mice. What could possibly go wrong? Researchers believe that hybrids can provide us with organs for transplants. Others think they hold the key to curing diseases like AIDS and Parkinson's and hepatitis or neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's. You'd think, since a lot of our modern day problems are the results of past tinkering, they should already know that it's not a good idea to mess with Mother Nature. But they just keep on doing it. What could possibly go wrong? Introducing human stem cells into developing ape embryos, scientists hope to investigate the similarities and the differences between the species. This could help unlock breakthroughs in regenerative medicine, organ transplants, and the evolution of certain traits. It could also lead to the creation of a man ape soldier. Or would it be an ape man soldier? They also want to do with certain traits, do away with certain traits. Dwarfism, for one. The scientists want to simply eliminate an entire group of citizens. I wonder what the dwarfs think about the possibility that the boys in the white lab coats are going to make them all simply go away over time. Rats and mice are often used in genetic research because they have surprising similarities to humans in immune system structure, genetic makeup, and physiology. No one ever considers what will happen if one or more of these genetically mixed mice gets loose. Oh, yes, they tell us nothing can possibly go wrong because, well, they're all super smart. They think of everything. Like Lyme disease could not possibly have escaped from that island, Plum Island. No, 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 no. Never mind that they had a hurricane came through, shut down all the electricity, and blew a couple of holes in the bill. That was another story. Bioengineering raises ethical concerns. If scientists create a successful human animal hybrid, would it be entitled to human rights? Does playing God with chimera experiments carry unforeseen circumstances? The topic is controversial, and most governments place restrictions on chimera, or so they say. No, they tell us they have restrictions. Remember back in the 60s and 70s, the Cold War was getting heated up. Governments all over the world were stockpiling chemical weapons. They knew we would be upset, so they told us that they were doing no such thing while doing it. Trains loaded with chemical weapons were being moved around the country, passing right through giant cities, passing over train tracks that were in desperate need of being upgraded. Most governments say they don't allow scientists to inject animal cells into humans or human embryos in order to respect the dignity of human life. Try to think of a country, just one country, that has zero respect for human life. I don't think they know what that word means. Why did I just hear Inigo Montoya's voice? Scientists are permitted to inject human cells into animal embryos. These embryos are not carried to term. Or maybe they are. I doubt there are police officers standing behind each and every scientist, keeping track of what they do or don't do. Dr. Malcolm said it best. Your scientists were so preoccupied with whether they could, they didn't stop to think if they should. They tell us because these experiments are controversial, researchers do not have access to public funding, like the Quality Living Center. Zygote is formed due to the fusion of two gametes from parents of the same species. A hybrid is formed due to the fusion of gametes from two parents who are not of the same species. A chimera does not need to come from a direct fusion of two gametes belonging to parents. Mules born from a male donkey and a female horse are hybrids, not chimeras. But in the case of a chimera, the DNA is not from the parents, it's from an entirely different organism. When the blood from another individual is transfused, the body of the patient subsequently contains two types of cells. One type is its own blood cells, and the other is that of the donor. Since all blood cells have a very limited lifespan, these foreign blood cells eventually die and they're whisked away and gotten rid of. And then they're simply replaced by the individual's own blood cells. Bone marrow is a region of our long bones that is responsible for producing red blood cells, uh, white blood cells, and platelets. In medicine, conditions such as in medical conditions such as leukemia, the bone marrow in a diseased person is unable to perform its functions. In such case, the ultimate strategy is to replace the defective marrow by transplanting bone marrow cells from a donor. If all the cells of the bone marrow are completely replaced, the future cells will be from the donor's marrow and not from the recipient's, making him a 100% chimera. I hate being sick. What can you do? I sure the heck won't go see a doctor. Those people have completely destroyed my faith in anything they say or do. If all, well, I already said that. Throughout that person's life, the recipient will harbor two types of cells, one that are their own and the others of the donor. I wonder if a person received a bone marrow transplant and then they were to commit a murder and the CSI guys found some blood at the scene, would they arrest the donor instead of the murderer? Fraternal or dizygotic twins are the twins generated from two zygotes. Two zygotes can be formed from two ova being simultaneously released and fertilized by two sperm cells. Identical twins are monozygotic, or twins generated from one zygote that divides into two before being implanted in the uterus. If one of the fraternal twins dies inside the mother's womb, the portion of this twin that is already formed is absorbed by the other twin. The individual, when born, is a human chimera. It has the DNA of two organisms. More often than not, this does not create any problems, and then the individual can live a normal life. In some cases, such as when the sex of the twins are different, it can lead to complications. If the surviving female still has cells containing Y chromosomes in her body, it could lead to the development of certain oh boy, masculine characteristics. There I go, making words up again. Cells from a fetus can cross the placenta and reach the mother's body. And there have been instances where some cells have been found long after the pregnancy ended. It's called microchimerism and is found to make some women permanent chimeras. The cell transfer takes place both ways and can also cause chimerism in the child. The presence of fetal cells has been associated with both positive and negative effects on maternal health. In 2012 study, researchers analyzed the brains of a few women from the ages of 32 to 101 who had recently died. Strikingly, they found that 63% of these women had traces of male DNA in their brains. This happened because the male fetus cells had traveled from the uterus into the mother's body. The oldest woman to have fetal cells in her brain was 94 years old. So these cells can last a very long time. In vitro fertilization is when fertilization is artificially induced. A sperm are made to fertilize the ovum in a petri dish. The resulting zygote develops to form an 8 to 16 cell embryo and is then transferred into the mother's womb for further development. Studies have found that in vitro fertilization can actually increase the frequency of chimerism. There is an increased frequency of twins being formed via in vitro fertilization. In most cases, these spontaneous human chimeras are dizygotic twins whose bodies have integrated cells of both genotypes. Charles Bocklage, a developmental biologist at the Brody School of Medicine at East Carolina University, who has studied chimerism for more than 25 years, says that about 1 in 8 people is a twin who was born singly. I'll bet I was the evil twin then. In 2002, a woman named Karen Keegan needed a kidney transplant. She, along with her family members, underwent genetic testing to see if somebody could donate a kidney. The genetic tests revealed she did not, apparently, she was not the mother of her 2 sons, even though everybody was there when they were born. This curious case was later solved by the doctors when they realized that Karen was a chimera. That Karen had 2 genetically different types of cells, one type present in her ovaries and another type found in her blood. The grunch is a deadly beast, sometimes compared to a chupacabra. The name refers to a group of half-humans living outside of New Orleans who have resorted to cannibalism as a result of a deal they may have made with the devil. They got their name from the road where they were seen most often, Grunch Road. It's believed that there was once a real Grunch Road somewhere in the city of New Orleans, and that it was made of shell from the Mississippi River as well as from the Gulf of America, and dirt. I lived on a road like that once. They would take oyster shell and just dump it on the road, and that's what the road was made of. Some believe that the original Grunch Road is now known as Gannon Road, which is located in Little Woods neighborhood in New Orleans. In some variations of the legend, the Grunch is incredibly similar to the North American version of the Chupacabra, which is typically described as being a dog-like creature with certain reptilian features. Part dog, part reptile, chimera. This monster is said to have glowing red eyes that can be seen at night. It's known to suck the blood from animals through a single hole, implying that the beast has a round mouth with circular teeth, like the lamprey. The Grunch is said to have human capabilities, such as able to open doors or use tools. Some say that these things can even pass right through a wall. The Grunch is said to have a strong smell about it. Some have even said that it has wings like a bat and it can fly, making this creature even more terrifying. To me, this says there might be more than one type of Grunch, some with wings and some little more human looking. Some folks have suggested the original beast was the child of Marie Laveau, the famous New Orleans witch of the 1800s, often referred to as the Voodoo Queen. The story goes Laveau began looking after a deformed child that became known as the Devil's Baby. Some believe the Devil's Baby was Laveau's own child after she'd had a affair with Mr. Scratch. In an attempt to stop the baby from reproducing, she cut off the baby's testicles. The testicles grew. One turned into a male and the other turned into a female Grunch, both of which then attacked Laveau and tried to kill her. These 2 creatures then escaped into the woods near Grunch Road. Anyone who is bitten by one of these creatures will turn into a Grunch themselves. There's an entirely different version of the legend of the Grunch that says this name refers to a group of deformed humans that were relegated to live in the woods because they were thought to be creations of the devil. According to this version, the Grunch refer to a group of people that were descendants of albinos and people with dwarfism. In early New Orleans society, these people were considered to be cursed by the devil because of their uncommon appearance. They were forced to live in the woods on the fringes of society. Since they had been shunned by society, nobody would interact with them, and they began to breed amongst themselves, leading to all manners of birth defects and anomalies. As a result of their seclusion and or the rumored deal with the devil, they eventually turned to cannibalism and other forms of feeding themselves. Because of humanity's cruel nature, these people became a sort of a sideshow for teenagers and immature adults. I, for one, would probably have been one of these immature adults who would go looking for them late at night. Kind of a free sideshow. Just try not to get bit. As the story goes, these banished people lived in the woods for many generations, and a great deal of inbreeding occurred. As a result, these people eventually went mad, developed a taste for blood. They began hunting farm animals as well as humans. Some folks get all offended by this story. If you're a dwarf Satanist or an albino cannibal, I'm sorry for your luck in life. It is not too late to switch teams. Give up your satanic ways or stop eating people. According to many versions of the legend, the Grunch will often leave an injured animal on the side of the road and wait for people to come along and try to help it. When the passerby isn't expecting, they'll be kidnapped, killed, and have their blood drained. New Orleans is a place where just about anything seems possible. There are miles and miles of uninhabited bayous, and there have been practitioners of voodoo living there for centuries. Would they qualify as being chimera? Perhaps, since the anomalies involved in their appearance and activities say they've got wings, they've got characteristics of different animals. Sounds to me like they're chimeras. During the Civil War, a battalion of Confederate soldiers encountered the Grunch in a town of Chalmette, Louisiana. The soldiers said the creature rose up out of the swamp. It had massive horns. The beast immediately killed two of the soldiers, but the others were able to chase the creature off with gunfire. The creature became known in the area as the Calumet Devil. 1909, a streetcar driver named Elmer Castine said a Grunch had hopped on the back of his streetcar and began attacking it. The story made it into the New Orleans papers and struck fear in the hearts of residents throughout the area. Because Grunch continue to reproduce, they are not just seen on Grunch Road. People have witnessed these creatures stalking them along the edges of New Orleans City Golf Course. At the Calumet National Battlefield, visitors have caught glimpses of the Grunch hiding near the levees. On Highway 90, Grunch startled drivers running across the road in front of their cars or sometimes trying to chase them. After Hurricane Katrina ravaged New Orleans in 2005, the people of Lakeview, Louisiana, stopped letting their pets out at night. According to locals, the hurricane had sent the Grunch population into Lakeview, where they were feasting on the local cats and dogs, and maybe one or two people. In the town of Harvey, grunch are regularly blamed for knocking over trash cans and doing other mischief. At first, residents thought these were giant mutant raccoons, but now they know they're dealing with the grunch. The modern day grunch road of shell and dirt has long disappeared. Many do say that it is now Gannon Road. The popular legend of the Jersey Devil or the Leeds Devil is dated variously and is almost invariably attached to the Pine Barrens and sometimes specifically to Leeds Point within the Barrens. 1735, a woman named Leeds had 12 children, and after discovering she was pregnant with number 13, she cursed the child in frustration, declaring, "Let this child be the devil." The child, though born normally, transformed into a creature with horns, a goat's head, bat wings, and a forked tail. Growling and screaming, the child beat everyone with its tail before flying up the chimney and heading off into the pines. In some versions of the tale, Mother Leeds was supposedly a witch, and the child's father was the devil himself. One of the more common types of chimera is our old friend, the werewolf. Think about it, half man, half wolf. Two distinct kinds of DNA mixed together to create one real monster. In Ohio, Ted Davis had been working between two rail cars, connecting air hoses, when the creature walked up behind him. When he noticed the creature's hairy feet, he turned around and looked up. Just as he was about to say something, the creature hit him with a 2x4. Luckily, the creature immediately ran off into the nearby brush, leaving Mr. Davis relatively unharmed. Over the next week, other railroad workers would see the creature almost always in the darkest hours of the night. Railroad workers were not the only ones that saw this creature. About a week after the first sighting, a grocery store worker saw a dog like monster run across the road in front of him as he was driving to work. The police did not report the sightings to the newspaper at first, but when more sightings began to come in, they eventually became concerned for public safety. The news broke in August edition of the Toledo Blade with an article titled "Werewolf Case in Defiance Not Viewed Lightly by Police." That would be Defiance, Ohio. 3 people have told police they saw a large beast that resembled a werewolf lurking alongside the railroad tracks near downtown Defiance. In each case, he was spotted during the early morning hours. One man, a train crewman switching trains, said he was approached from behind and was struck in the shoulder. In the other report, the werewolf was seen by another train crewman at about 3 a.m. Police said the third report came from a motorist who said he'd seen it run across the road in front of his car. Chief Beckler said the description of the werewolf given by the 3 people that spotted him are all similar. He's a hairy-handed gent who ran amok in Kent. Lately, he's been overheard in Mayfair. Very hairy. In the first description given by each person who said the werewolf, the chief said that he thinks the person is wearing some kind of a disguise. The chief said the creature wears dark-colored clothing, and reports describe him as ranging from 7 to 9 feet tall. Ted Davis and Tom Jones. What's new, pussycat? No, not that Tom Jones. Uh, The crewman, named Tom Jones of the N&W locomotive freight, which serves a Defiance on an overnight run, said that the large figure that he saw was 6 to 8 feet tall, and he's seen it twice during a full moon. Jones had initially laughed at Davis's earlier story, but when he'd seen one himself, he decided that perhaps the story was not a joke. More reports of werewolf encounters started to flow in, and while people weren't seeing the creature all the time, the panic that the news articles had created was very real. The Crescent News ran an article with the headline, Wolfman Reports Persist, in which several other encounters were written of. Another woman reported something had been scratching at her door, and that if anything comes through, I'm shooting it. You hear him howling around your kitchen door. You better not let him in. Little old lady got mutilated late last night. Werewolves of London again. I love that song. Chief Beckler toned things down a little when he talked to the press, and the next day another article ran regarding the Defiance werewolf that played up the likelihood that this was simply some nut job in a mask running around trying to scare people. Also in Ohio, a Tifton man told the Seneca County Sheriff's Department he saw an ape-like animal while walking along the wooded area of the river road north of Tiffin. Harold Annan said the ape was covered with hair, but it had kind of wolfish features, and it had fangs. He said it was 6 or 7 feet tall, and it was kind of hunched over looking. Weldon Neff, the Seneca County game warden, checked the woods in the area, but he was unable to find any evidence of a werewolf. Tiffin is about 70 miles from Defiance, and it's on the same rail line. Are werewolves a product of a curse and magic, or maybe these days some government monkey business? Vicar Manson told about an old East German guard that he met one day. I think the guy had been a colonel. He said the Soviets used werewolves to patrol parts of the border that were too remote for normal troops. The way he said it, a werewolf, like Terry Garr said it in the movie. If the Soviets had Chimera soldiers, you know the U.S. had them as well. If we didn't have actual werewolves, there were boys in white trying to create them. Once more, I'll return to the subject that I started out talking about. 1932 news reports appeared suggesting that the snallygaster was drawn to moonshine stills hidden in the mountains. December 12th, the Register announced that the creature had fallen into a large vat of backwoods liquor when it became overcome by the fumes. By the time the officials got there, the alcohol had completely eaten away the animal, leaving only its bones. Today, they have something called the Dragon Distillery in Frederick that offers Snallygaster Rye. Since alcohol is actually used to preserve dead things, you'd expect the snallygaster to have kept in one piece and not dissolved by that stuff. Motorola engineer Martin Cooper designed the first mobile phone after watching television series Star Trek. He was inspired by what he saw, even though it was just science fiction. It was the spark that led to the hours of tinkering. There are folks who watch horror movies all the time, and they just might get inspired as well. Pablo Escobar wanted hippos, and he got hippos. Is there some person with way too much money looking to create some new and wonderful monster? Just so he can say, look what I have. If you enjoyed tonight's show, if you did, spread it around. Hope my voice doesn't sound too bad. In my ears, it sounds horrible. Until next time, this is Chris James for Strange Things.
Are you coming to the tree where there's strung up a man who they say he murdered 3? Strange things have happened there. No stranger would it be if we met at midnight in the hanging tree.